What's up, guys? I'm SaltEMike, and this is your Star Citizen Week in Review for July 4th, 2022. 3.17.2 is finally on the PTU servers, and we can talk about it. There is a wipe coming with that patch, and I think that we're going to have quite a few more in the near future. All that and more on today's Week in Review. And as always, if this is your first week in review, this is where I take all of the official Star Citizen news each week, put it into one video, and share some of my opinions about it. I also live stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/SaltEMike, starting at 6:30 a.m. Eastern Time every day but Monday, so I can get this video out to you guys. Today's going to be a little bit different. The format has to be, because 3.17.2 was a majority of the updates, so if it was about patch notes, that's what we would talk about. Video updates, all about 3.17.2. So I want to start out with just what is coming in the patch, and they start out with new locations. Derelict Reclaimers, we know that we're going to get two types, puzzle traversal with them, and that they come with both legal and illegal mission types, and we can get to the locations by progressing through the delivery, the bounty hunter, or the mercenary paths. So this is pretty important to see, because some people were saying it was only delivery and things like that. So if you progress through those paths in 3.17.2, you will find these reclaimers. Then they also have derelict outposts, and there's 5 of them, all on Microtech, which seem to be only found through the delivery missions, and I think that's where the confusion was. And they sport some new reinforcements with the AI. It was very, very cool. I saw this on my live stream, and yeah, it kind of blew me away. I didn't expect it to be that smooth, or I couldn't exactly tell if it was a player or not, which was really cool. And yeah, I just haven't been able to see these on my own that well, because I haven't been able to gain rep as much with the delivery company as I would like to. They also added new items, the Grey Cat Salvage Backpack, and a number of new armors. Then for some feature updates that we already had, they're adding more hangars to rest stops, which I prefer personally, because I think the just general opening of the doors is really nice, but I also feel safer because you can get your shields up and be prepared before you leave the hangar, where you're so vulnerable right now just sitting out on a pad with a ship that's off, shields off, nothing. I think I've talked about this before. I think it was on Answer the Call. A lot has to change with that, in my opinion, but let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. And then they added more Lagrange points, which these stations would inhabit, right? So that's cool, I guess. The only reason it's cool is because they're finishing out the Stanton system the way it should be in preparation for moving over to Pyro. Grimhex Hospital has been expanded greatly, which was obviously needed. And then combat service beacons. The key here is the hook into quantum like stuff about it, because the combat beacons are still combat beacons. They've told us which ones are easier versus which ones are harder, but in reality, what is important about these is they should only show up where they're necessary, right? We only have one star system. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense for quantum right now to be like, you know, this area is more dangerous than others, but a lot of combat service beacons would kind of dictate the threat of an area, right? So the data that they get back from 3.17.2 and beyond should help the game be better in the future. And they also removed higher value gems from NPCs and other people in caves and outposts, things like that. I've only found Dolovine. I haven't found any Hadanite recently. Basically, they're devaluing looting and bunkers and all those things, because they were really good to do, but I also thought that there was appropriate amount of risk. I didn't really see the need for this. Let me know what you guys think about that. Players will also drop magazines when reloading if they're empty, which is a really, really good thing, because yeah, that's just a normal thing to have in an FPS game, and us not having it has been very weird and caused a lot of issues where you would reload just an empty magazine all the time. It made no sense. It was silly. And they also are kind of helping out newer players as well as veteran players like myself, who sometimes shoot at the NPCs that are friendly by accident because the armors are too close and it might be a little dark in the area, so they're going to put a little AR marker over them during some missions. And they disabled corpse markers for anybody but your own corpse, which just makes sense. If you did Jumptown recently, it was crazy. There was just corpse markers everywhere and they're blocking view. It's not a good thing. Ship updates, the Mustang Beta has, or not the Mustang Beta, the Alpha has its proper cargo hold, which is really good, but the Aurora does not. I'm a big Aurora fan. I would have liked to see both come in at the same time. Vandal Blade is getting an update, and we talked a lot about that last week, so no need to touch on it here, and as well as a bunch of other minor updates. For weapons and items, they changed the weight of missiles, basically, size and how it would fit in an inventory, as well as torpedoes. So if you're going to be moving those between places, that has changed. And this last one is kind of laughable because the core tech that they added in 3.17.2 is supposed to smooth out FPS desync, and it doesn't. It does. Basically, players are teleporting all over the place. It's insanely bad. I wonder if they took what they were trying to do with the ships and apply it to FPS, and it has broken the game, and it is rough. Now, with 3.17.2F on the PTU, they did a little bit more balance to the combat assist missions, and they made more network improvements, which did nothing. So a number of minor bug fixes, but the main thing to focus on is this patch is going to be really rough unless they get this networking stuff fixed. Then we will talk a little bit about Siege of Orison, because Siege of Orison will not be good unless they get this fixed. Now, if you don't know what it is a massive event that is going to be mainly in FPS. And they spent some time on ISC this week sharing some tips on how to succeed at the event. Now, I think all the tips are important, but the main ones that I think that I really want to share with you guys are that you should not be able to fly a ship in the area, but the taxis are the way that you're going to get around, and they are very different. You call them and you send yourself to other places around the platforms at Orison. They also did a playtest yesterday. I watched Zero State and Captain Burke's play, and it was rough. They were flying ships when they probably shouldn't have, and it just doesn't feel threatening enough, along with teleporting AI and players and all sorts of problems. It's concerning because the event should be really cool. It should be a huge change from what we've had in the past, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be that way. Also, this patch is coming with a database wipe. I talked a lot about this on my other channels in the Star Citizen space, and yeah, this is the shortest time that we've had a wipe since they've introduced long-term persistence. So from 3.15 to 3.17 is really all we got, and that's not necessarily ideal, and the community wasn't happy about it. But it had to be done. They basically, if you've played the game at all, you would know it had to be done. Long-term persistence has had tons of issues. Every time I logged in, I lost pieces of my armor. Other players lost money, ship components, all sorts of things. It is very problematic, and this was the option that they had to take to fix those issues. It just was not avoidable. So they are wiping our Alpha UEC wallets, as well as any purchases that we've made in-game. But as always, anything you purchased on the website, totally fine. Obviously, because the system for the database on a website, your purchases, is much simpler than the interaction with a game server, right? So there were some issues there. They had to fix it. The one thing that will stay is reputation. So if you haven't checked out my patch guide on how to take advantage of that, it'll be up in the top right corner. And then lastly, dynamic events. We talked about Siege of Orison, which is going to be the next dynamic event, but during this weekend, Ninetales and Jumptown ran. Now, obviously, this comes out on Monday. You probably will not have the opportunity to play it, but they were okay. I don't play Ninetales. I think it is a broken event. I don't think it makes any sense, and Jumptown is one of my favorite things in the game, but it just felt different this time. Let me know what you guys thought. Let me know what your experiences were, but the fights were less contested in the past because there's nothing to fight over, since the money doesn't matter, right? It's just about the fun, and I did have fun, but there was just something different about it. It just didn't have the intensity you would expect from a Jumptown. Now, if you've never played them, they did put a guide up on their website on how these events work, and they do plan on doing them again post 3.17.2 wipe, which will be a great opportunity to make back some of the money or ships that you purchased through these events, because they do offer a lot of ways to make money, basically. And we did have a few other updates this week that did not pertain to 3.17.2, and the main one was a sneak peek, believe it or not. I thought this was really interesting because there's a lot of debate on what this is. Is this a station in Pyro? Is this a chop shop? What do you guys think? Is it a ship customization place? Nobody really knows what it is, so I found this one to be kind of interesting. And then we had an update to the code of conduct, and the reason this is interesting at all is because the Reddit thread had 300 comments. I guess it's more interesting to me than it would be to you, as most of the stuff here is incredibly standard. But the reason it had 300 comments is because the word stream sniping was mentioned, or the phrase stream sniping was mentioned. Why do you guys hate streamers so much? I have no idea. Most of the advice was, if you don't want to get stream sniped, don't stream. I also think if you want to follow the code of conduct and not get banned, you should probably just do that as well. It's definitely a debate that has to be had. I'm more on the side of, if you're showing your screen, it's kind of on you in a lot of ways, but at the same time, if that crosses the line into some level of harassment and you're using the stream to harass, that's when I find there to be a problem. Next up is the Foundation Festival, and I find this to be a little bit interesting because there's going to be earnable ship paints, even though I don't find the paints to look very cool, or, you know, they're just not my style, essentially. And I hate the paint system where I'd be earning paints for certain ships and I may not have those, things like that. It's just kind of silly. But the thing that is interesting is they're going to be showing organization highlights, you know, and promoting other people's organizations. The guide system. Will this be the time that they show the community hub update? Who knows? There's also going to be a free fly that coincides with that event starting on July 7th. Personally, I thought that July 7th would be the day that 3.17.2 goes live. Zyla went on, I think, the forums and said, that's not necessarily the case. We're aiming possibly for mid-July for a live release of 3.17.2. That means this free fly will be on 3.17.1. We've already had a free fly in 3.17, and the patch was a dumpster fire. And this patch is no exception to that. I always wonder why they time things these ways and don't delay them ever. Let me know what you guys think, but the feeling for me is you want new players to enjoy the game. And the issue with 3.17.1 is that it's incredibly unstable and has a lot of issues in comparison to previous patches that we've had in the past, and most likely in comparison to what 3.17.2 would have in terms of stability. I understand Star Citizen's an alpha and there's going to be bugs, right? Like, players need to know that coming in. If they don't, that's kind of on them in a lot of ways. But the stability aspects of the game, I feel, are a little bit more on CIG, and running free flies when you know the patch is unstable is just kind of shooting yourself in the foot, and it just seems like a weird thing to do. Let me know what you guys think again, but yeah, like, the standard bugginess of the game is one thing, but running a free fly in the same patch, essentially, that you did before that had lots of stability issues is a whole nother thing. Maybe it has something to do with the database wipe, and they don't want to cause issues for the new database, and they just want to keep breaking the old one. I have no idea, but that's the thing. And Galactopedia update is the last thing. The main story was about Yar fruit, which is the one fruit that I won't ever grab out because I think it dehydrates you in the game. And then the other side stories are your usual system guide stuff. But then they also touched on some plants and things like that. So if you guys are into that, go ahead and check that out. And guys, that'll do it for this week's Week in Review. Thank you so much for watching. Again, a little bit different of a format, but not too much. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys are checking out 3.17.2 if you have access, and hopefully you'll have access soon if you don't. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next week.